So I'll let you introduce yourself.
How are you? I'm Joe Basile. I'm the guy.
Tell them exactly everything you did on this film, just to make it official.
Craft service.
Yeah.
Writer, producer, director, actor, and office PA, shuttle drive runner, everything.
Called indie film.
Yes.
So the first thing we do is it always takes a village and a family and a crew and a tribe to make a film happen. So any cast and crew in the audience you want to acknowledge?
So I have Peter Onorati and Isabella Hoffman in the back. My crew's all New York based, so they're not here. Should I just start talking about it?
If you want to, jump in. The first thing I'm going to say is just for everyone who's new here, the reason we do these a lot is encourage audiences to create their own work, and the best way to learn how to create your own work is to hear from people that have been there and done it. So that's why the kind of Q&A is going to be around that. So script, story, get into it. How did that come to be?
Great. So I wrote a script when I was 27, about 2 years ago. I wrote it for me to star in. It was actually a big bi-coastal Beverly Hills Cop meets, the mafia. And as I rewrote the script, it got smaller and smaller. It got more Jersey-centric. And then, without me really knowing it, it became Hamlet on the Jersey Shore. A buddy of mine from my acting school read it, and he's like, dude, this is Hamlet. And I was like, oh my God, it's Hamlet. So, rewriting, it got more Hamlet. I emphasized that. And then it became what you saw. And Pete's been with me for a minute. We've read this script how many years? How many times? Yes, so there you go. Thanks, Pete. So it's evolved a lot. I got my master's at UCLA for screenwriting. Thank you. And their motto is story, story, story. And for me, that's what was great about being able to workshop this script for so long, because the story got so, I'm going to say precise. It got so flushed out. The characters got so developed. So it gave my actors a lot to play with. And, what else?
One question that came out of there for me was 20 years or so, what made you stick with it and not just kind of scrap it and move on, or this is never going to happen type of thing? How do you kind of keep going at it and just keep being persistent?
You're stupid. No, it's, persistence. I mean, anything, that's what it takes,
So there we go. So just because the people watching won't hear, it was one of many scripts, and it was just kept writing and writing. How did you eventually kind of know, okay, we are ready to kind of shoot something with this? How was it in those 20 years when you're like, okay, this is we're kind of getting close?
You don't, because, I went back to New Jersey in 2007 to raise money and make the movie. I had a different producing partner. And it was a different script. And luckily we didn't make the movie because it wasn't this script. So I got to take so when you make a movie, make sure you have the best script, the best story possible. Because you're presenting it, and it takes a lot of work to make it. So you want to make you want to make a good product. And if going on the film circuit, I've seen a lot of movies made for little money. And even though you raise the money, it doesn't mean your script is ready. I was writing up until the night before, and know that if you're going to make a movie for not that much money, you're not going to get any sleep for like 2 years. Because the buck stops with you. I couldn't say, oh, well, it was the script, or, oh, my gosh, this guy, or this guy. Because I told investors, I'm going to make you a Hollywood-grade movie for a price. And I'm from New Jersey, I'm Italian, and I raised the money in New Jersey, so I had to come through. That's a joke, guys, you can laugh. Thank you. Or else.
How the adage sounds true for you, write what you know. You're from Jersey, all that kind of stuff. Talk a little bit about like, okay, that's, you're going to write from that place.
So my father wasn't a gangster. He died when I was 17, so that's the parallel, him going to jail. Me and my mom have that relationship. Luckily, she'll never see this, so I can say that. Me and my mom have that relationship. So, when I was 17 and my pop died, I was sort of left on my own. I came out to Hollywood. I didn't go to law school, much to my mother's chagrin. So that's the base of that. And then a lot of the lines you hear in the movie are actual lines that people have said to me. Like, when I went back to make it this year, I shouldn't tell you who said it. But someone said to me, every once in a while I got to rip something that's not my wife. And I was like, oh my God. A buddy of mine, I did know a gangster in New Jersey who said verbatim, I know what I do, I choose it, I know where I'm going, so fuck it. And that guy, I met him when I was 20, but that line has been consistent in the movie. Pete, in front of the club, when Pete goes teen night, when John Trevi goes teen night, fucking teen night, I scouted that location, and that was on the billboard. That was there, and I'm like, holy shit, teen night, it's great. And I wrote it into the script, and my biggest fear was they were going to take it down because they sold the building, and I was like, oh, they can't take the teen night sign down. It's got to be there. But, so when you make a movie for a budget, you have to, you're always looking, you're always creating, you're trying to, all my locations were basically real. I had done a year of fundraising and reintroducing myself to the community because that's where I grew up. And one of my executive producers introduced me to a guy named Bob Bennett. And I met Bob, he's an 83-year-old guy, I think it was 80 when I met him. I met Bob, and he told me his story of how he started in 1949 painting the boardwalk, and by 1983 he owned it. And he's a great guy. He said, anything I can do to help, I will help you. And I said, well, I'd like to shoot, can I shoot in Seaside Heights? It's named West End because there's a community, West End Long Branch, north of Seaside, was predominantly Italian-American. And, Asbury Park and Long Branch wanted cops, money, and I didn't have any money, but I didn't have a lot of money. So when I saw Seaside Heights, I was like, oh my God, I can shoot in Seaside Heights. It's got the grid I want. And for a $25 event fee, as long as I didn't kill anybody on public property, I could shoot anywhere I want. I shot anywhere I wanted. And the great thing about it was, one night we were shooting the Jimmy Vitrone death scene. We were shooting the outside when they walk into the warehouse. And I see a cop we're shooting across the street. We're not permitted at all. Like, and my crew's just like, yeah, yeah. And I'm like, the fucking cops, man, the fucking cops. You know, and they drive by and they're like, and I'm like, but, you know, the community opened their arms. Everything you see was dressed basically the way it was. The only thing we really changed was Mary Trevi's house. That was my executive producer's house, and her furniture wasn't conducive to shooting. It was very New Jersey in a good way, but luckily she won't watch this either. But it was really New Jersey in a great way, in a good way, but not good for shooting. So we had to bring a couch in that Isabella Mary Trevi could sit on, and put a chair where Vic Trevi could sit on, and logistically shoot it. But the kitchen there, you know, when Vic Trevi, when Victor Boy opens the closet door and he reminisces, everything was in there. Wall Township, the Knights, her son, those were her sons. It was just in there. And I'm like, okay, man, look at this, do this. Oh, Jesus. And the red car was there. I'm like, the fucking red car, how genius is that? You know, so, and just to put into perspective, I shot 91 pages in 18 days with 25 locations. So I was shooting on a slow day 5 pages. Slow day meaning, you know, at the hotel, the fight scene, I needed to take time for that. Big day church, 1 day. Everything in the church was 1 day. And, you know, as a writer, director, actor there, you know, you're under pressure, you got to get it done. Got a little crazy sometimes.
We'll back up just a little bit. How, obviously, as much as you did, you couldn't do it on your own. So
Yes.
How did you build that producer team? How did you get the people to help you with connections and do some of the legwork for you?
I went home. I was introduced to a woman named Michelle Hurley, who was big in the community, the business community. She introduced me to Shelley LaCasio, who owns a Lincoln dealership. As you can see, Victor drove a Lincoln. So through those two women, I was reintroduced to the community. Excuse me, I found my producer on Mandy.com, and then we found local crew. You know, we crewed out of New York. But again, a lot of work, like there's so much work to be done. And it's, if you're making the movie, it's your responsibility not to let anything fall through the cracks.
Were you, were you out here, or did you move back there for a while?
Back. So I stopped acting. I stopped everything. I wasted, I'm not going to say I wasted. I spent all my money to make the movie. So yeah, it was my full-time job. And, you know, up until recently, because when you're going to festivals, you can't take a job because, you know, you're going here, you're going there. I chose festivals in LA and New York and New Jersey because that's where the movie would play best. But, you know, up until about 6 months ago, this was my job, you know.
And talk about, what was your process with fundraising? You talked a little bit about the executive producer coming on and talking to people. Kind of, what was it? Was it piecemeal? Did you do any Kickstarter? Just kind of talk about that.
I didn't do any Kickstarter. I just knocked on doors in New Jersey, and luckily the two women that I had behind me knew people. And in my business plan, I had to raise $300,000 until I could take the money out of escrow. So right when we got at the $300,000 mark, we started production without having the rest to finish. And luckily, I say luckily because We started Memorial Day week. We didn't start Memorial Day weekend. We had to be done. We started April. I think April 11th, 2012 was the first day of shooting, and we were going to March 28th, which was the day before Memorial Day, and we had to be out by Memorial Day because the season started. And then we needed to do pickup shots. So a lot of exteriors you see, the Lincoln Navigator pulling up to the club was done afterwards. We did a couple shots with Neil Bledsoe. We did a couple shots with Pete Onorati and Anthony Mangano. Like the first time we see Pete and Anthony, that was done in September. And luckily we got it done because in October, Sandy came and wiped out the boardwalk. So I don't know if it's great or good or bad, but I have the honor of shooting the last movie. I have the last footage of the Jersey Shore, the boardwalk the way it was, the way Bob Bennett built it. So, thank you.
Clap on that. Yeah, that's cool.
Why not? Thank you so much.
Talk a little bit about the writing and the casting process. Obviously, you were working with actors. And being an actor, you know a lot of actors.
Yeah.
Was it a lot of writing for people you know? Was it a little bit of that and a little bit of just casting people you didn't know?
I cast every part except for the 4 leads, and we ran into some trouble, so I played musical actors. I was supposed to play the heavy. Pete Onorati was supposed to play the priest. I needed Pete to play Uncle John, who, thank you, Pete, because he rocked it. Pete introduced me to Isabella. You know, luckily I talked to her and I said I was making a movie, and I made a movie, and I got to hire her and work with her. Thank you. Anthony Mangano, I did a movie called Eight Heads in a Duffel Bag with. He was my partner, so we have a long history. Lou Martini, I met through another actor because I did a sizzle reel for this in 2007, so I hired Lou as a payback for helping me do the sizzle reel. The kid who plays the cop helped me do the sizzle reel. I hired him. Wayne Duvall, who plays Fat Patty, dear friend of mine. You know, Donna led me to Paul Calderon, Neil Bledsoe, Melissa Archer. There's one more. And Eric Roberts. Yes, Eric, how could I forget that? Eric Roberts. You know, Joe Nieves, who plays Buddy. I studied acting with him a long, long time ago. So I was luckily I could, like, the fantasy was, hey, man, I'm making a movie. You want to do it? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, great, New Jersey, come on. You know, so Donna helped me cast the 4 leads, not the 4 leads, but the girl, the guy, Victor Trevi, the father, and Paul Calderon, who played the agent. And then I was lucky enough to hire, you know, friends of mine. I wrote Fat Patty for Wayne. I was lucky enough to get him. You know, and that's the way it went.
So for the couple of leads and stuff, was there casting sessions, or was it just people that you had certain people in mind? It was just more discussions. How did you kind of work that?
I discussed with my casting director. I had a lot of work to do, so she recommended. I talked to Neil. I talked to Melissa. They auditioned for me.
Talk a little bit about being an actor behind that table in the audition process, because you're used to coming in as an actor, but now you're coming in as the director and the one that's hiring people.
Yeah.
Maybe for the actors in the room, kind of what's your advice being on the other side of the table for them?
There's, come into the room, and be present. Look who you're talking to. You know, your audition is your audition. Rock it. I have students, I tell them, never apologize for your work. You know, even if you think you did bad, you know, walk out proud. And if you're going to ask for a second chance, rock it. And and then when you exit the room, walk out proud, you know? Because I want to work with people, you know, the great thing about working with Pete, Wayne, Joe, even Melissa, everybody, the great thing about working with, I like them. Like, I still talk to them. Pete's like my brother sometime. And we don't talk, so no, I'm just kidding. You know, Pete's like my brother. Isabella is just wonderful. You know, so, you know, I like to hire people I like to see. You know, and that's be a person is the best advice I can give you. And, you know, because I'm an actor, I'm pretty nice. I want you to do good. Like, I want you to do well. You solve my problem.
You talked about how many days you shot and the amount of locations. Give us some behind-the-scenes stuff. Was there a scene where, like, had to stop raining for 5 minutes, or the dog had to stop barking for 5 minutes to kind of get the shot? Kind of give us some behind-the-scenes that give us context into that final product.
So, as I told you, Teen Night was already there. That came into the mix. You know, you have to get creative. The big shot with in the flashback scene with John and Victor Trevi after they have their confrontation, and you see the boardwalk, and you see I'm shooting from a second-story balcony. You know, so you just have to get really creative, see everything around you, how to exploit everything. Joe Leone, when we pull up to pick up Fat Patty and he's having lunch, all the people, so I dealt with a lot of Italian Americans, a lot of Italian American business owners. I'll give you some anecdotes now. And Joe Leone, who owned Joe Leone's, he's the big guy that, you know, goes like this and looks at him, who just has orangutan arms and looks like he's going to kill you. Well, he's a chef. And first of all, Joe was like, you got to give me lines. You got to put me in. You got to give me lines. And I'm like, dude, I can't give you lines. I'm sorry. It's a union show. Can't give you lines. And then you have to sell them. But, dude, your character, you don't need any lines. It's all in your presence. So we go, and he shoots. And then he becomes an actor. How did I do, man? Was it good? Did you get what you need? Blah, 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 blah. And then I edit, and I show him a rough cut. And everyone that passes, I go to a restaurant to show him. Everyone that passes by, come here, look at this. Look at this. And then every time I talk to him, because we're doing reshoots, every time I talk to him, he's like, what do you got for me? Can I get in? I need more. I need more. I'm like, oh my God. So then the restaurant where he pulls the gun in the closet, another guy, Sal Chirella, who owns Rella's restaurant. Salvi's like, I know these guys. You got to get me in. I got to play something. And I'm like, okay. He goes, and you got to give me lines. I got to speak. I'm like, I can't give you lines because blah, 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 blah. And then, you know, so I'm like, okay, Salvi, bring a suit. We're shooting at your place tonight. You know, D. He's like, all right. So he brings his suit, comes out. What do you think? What do you think? I look like a gangster, right? I know these guys. This is what they dress like. I'm like, yep. So then I'm like, you know, you're figuring out the blocking. You're figuring out how it's going to work, because in the script, the scene was different. He's in a parking lot, puts his head in the trunk, pulls a gun, and that's how the scene's played. But I can't do that. So now it happens in the restaurant. So then, you know, same thing. We do it, and he's threatening. Like, he pushes him in, does the whole thing, and I'm like, oh my God, this looks great. And he's like, pretty good, right? Because I know these guys. This is the way they do it. It's like, right. So we go to his restaurant. So it was his restaurant. I you know, came to Jersey. I was editing in Brooklyn. I came to Jersey with the rough cut, you know, and Sal sees the damn thing. He's like, look at me. I'm like a movie star. So, and every time I talk to him now, when are we making another movie? You put me in, right? I'm like, yep. You know, so but it's great because the community was really, really, they were behind it. And it was really nice for that. It was just great to shoot in New Jersey, you know, where I grew up. I didn't want to make a typical mobster movie. I didn't want my gangs. I didn't want to make another Sopranos, even though, you know, it's Soprano-esque. I wanted it to be Jersey. I wanted it to be Jersey Shore. And, you know, where I grew up, all the Italians moved out of Brooklyn, out of the Bronx, out of Jersey City, like my father, and brought their families to the country. So, you know, I'm not going to get in trouble. You know, there were Profacis, there were a bunch of families that I went to high school with and grew up with that were a little like this, as we say. Does everyone know what that means? Good, thank you.
Let's kind of start moving in a little bit into post-production. How, first question I always ask is, how did you feel you did or did not set yourself up for post-production? Did you feel like you had everything smoothly, or did you feel like editing-wise you wish you learned some things that you're like, if I'd have done it differently?
I think you learn things no matter how many movies you make. Like, big budget, small budget, you're constantly learning if you're not. But my editor was my DIT guy. He was my, I don't know what DIT means, but he downloaded all the cards every night. And he started putting it together. He had never edited a feature. And I had hired Ted for a week to put a first cut in because I thought I would come out to LA. And then a week turned into, hey, I'm not leaving just yet. Why don't we keep working? And then the great thing about editing was I had 6 months. You know, and Ted was in a rock band, so we'd take 4 months. He would go on tour. We'd take 4 weeks off, and we would come back, and we could hit it fresh. A buddy of mine who edits television, because, you know, your first cut, you put it together, and you're like, oh, my God, I made a movie. And then you watch it, and you're like, holy jeez, what happened? And Pete said something to me in the beginning of the process. I showed him a rough cut, and he goes, look, you have a good movie. It might not be the exact movie you envisioned, but it's there. And I was like, huh. And then a buddy of mine who cuts television said to me, don't be afraid to cut your words out. If it makes the scene better, take it out. So with that knowledge, you know, Ted and I went in and we trimmed and this and that, moved scenes around. You know, as you've all heard, you write the movie, you shoot the movie, you cut the movie. It's 3 chances, it's 3 opportunities to make the movie. Lucky for me, all my shots, because you're shooting 5 to 10 pages a day. You're not going, okay, closer, okay, how about we try this? Okay, it's like bang, 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 you're out. Okay, we don't have time, let's do it in a oneer. You're out. So luckily, we had the footage to cut. You know, thankfully my DP, I'd like to take a little bit of credit for that. You know, so the team got it. And I had 6 months to work it. You know, again, don't shoot the movie until your script is finished. Don't think you're done until you're really, really done. And then you're not done because you're going to tweak it a little bit anyway. And you know, it was a huge learning experience because I didn't know color correction. I didn't know sound design. I didn't know anything. So a buddy of mine who makes indie films, I was like, hey, I'm coming to town with a lot of hard drives. Can you help me? And he introduced me to a bunch of people. I had a guy who gave me a polish edit and put the movie together for final assembly. I had a guy, my color correction guy, however you say it. You know, that was a process. Sound design, my composer. You know, thank you, because it's like I sat down with him. We talked Kiss, Van Halen. I was like, he's Italian. I'm like, I like him. He likes me. He said, you know, the one great thing about what Jeff said to me was, I don't want to over music your movie. Your movie stands alone. So with that, I was like, great. And with that, it's funny, we talked a week later, I get a call and he's like, hey man, I did a few things. I got the main theme and a couple things done. Do you want to come and listen to it? And he had finished the whole movie in a week, so he was really inspired. My color correction guy was great. My sound designer was great, luckily, to polish the movie. Because, again, for me, some people would go, as I was doing it, oh, it's good enough, man, it's good enough. And I'm like, no, it's not. And luckily I had people to go like, I'm going the extra mile for you. So team is really, when you make a movie for any amount of money, but especially for a minimal amount of money, team is really, really, really important.
And was those all East Coast, or were you back here at the West Coast?
West Coast, shooting East Coast. Ted, I edited. I came here with basically the final cut.
Got it.
And then finished it here.
Nice. And then, did you have a festival plan, or was that something you thought about after because that was just the next phase, or was that kind of something that you were?
I don't think I had a real plan for anything.
There you go.
Honest to goodness, it was like fly by the seat of your pants. I would like to. It's almost like, oh my God, it is Hamlet. Oh my God, it's festival time. So no, but I did when I hit it. I hit it hard. I was very lucky to get into a lot of festivals. It did really well, which I'm really proud of. Just because I got Best Feature, Best Director, Best Supporting Actor, Best Actor. I was nominated for Best Screenplay. Thank you. It just, it did well. It was really well received. Thank you guys for laughing at the parts you were supposed to laugh, jumping at the parts you were supposed to jump at, and hating Joe Nieves because, yes.
Talk a little bit about something, especially first-time filmmakers don't know things about deliverables, things like that. And talk a little bit about what that process is like.
Yeah, I still don't.
But the idea that festivals want certain. Go ahead.
Festivals, I was lucky. Again, I was lucky to have people tell me. For the festival, the color and the sound were finished but not QC'd. Luckily nowadays you can play on DVD. I shot on a Red Epic, so I shot 5K, so it's really clear. Even the Blu-ray, it looks really good, if I can say that myself. But then when you deliver to a sales agent, then you have to QC, and the deliverables have to be a certain format, and it's an SRHD 250 and a blah, 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 blah. And then what's crazy is I thought I was done with the movie when I physically finished the movie, but selling the movie is a whole other crazy game. You said, keep on going, Joe.
Well, I was just going to say, and that's a process that I'm sure is still ongoing in the sense of learning and just kind of figuring it out. And so
it's probably one of the most frustrating processes because in my naivete, I was like, okay, I have a good story, big production value, I have great actors, good direction. It looks like I made it for, I'm going to say, $2 million. And it's a hard sell, which sort of amazes me. But it's the game and it's the navigation. So, if you're going to make an indie movie and you want to make a little bit of money, I hate to say it, but make a movie for $50,000, and it doesn't have to be perfect. Because if you watch Netflix, you can see a slew of movies that are okay. And, if you make a movie for 50 and you make 100, you've made money. Yeah.
We always kind of end on the idea of, in everything you learned in this process, if you could encourage a person who's like, I want to make a feature, what would be a nugget or two of like, okay, if you don't remember anything else, remember these couple things?
Have a team that supports your vision. Story. Make sure your script rocks, because actors you'll get actors to play in your movie. Product for a price. You know, I told my investors I was going to deliver a Hollywood-grade movie for a certain price. I feel I did. You know, and if you're a writer, director, actor, you're a salesman. And when you go to investors, you know, you have to be able to pitch your movie. You have to be able to tell them. Like for me, West End is Hamlet on the Jersey Shore, about a kid who runs away from his mafia family. 10 years later, he comes back, and we find out he's infiltrating his family to find out who murdered his father. Like, it's that quick. You want to be that specific, because if you sit in front of people and you're like, well, you know, it's, you know, the kid, you know, his father, he just doesn't like his father because his father's put in jail, and then he runs away and he becomes a lawyer, and, you know, he comes back, and it's pretty good. You know, I like the story, and it's cool. You know, it's a business. Treat it like it's a business. Treat it like a business. When you get into business with if you're making a movie with your friends, make sure you have a plan. Make sure everyone knows what their job is and what they're going to get. Because all of a sudden, you make a movie, you don't have any contracts, and someone goes, no, I did this and I deserve this. And you're like, well, you know, Because I've written scripts with people that haven't contributed as much as me, and all of a sudden it becomes an issue. And you put the script away because, you know, I don't want to deal with the hassle. So contracts, make sure your story's ready to go. Always keep on working on your script. It's not done until it's shot. And then whatever else I said. Team.
And call Joe when you're stuck for something. Thank you. Great movie. Give him a hand.